Hello, my name is Anna. I'm from Russia. I'm curator and art critic, and today I will bring you a small history excursus to contemporary art in Soviet Union. My story will be dedicated to artist trans spaces and alternative exhibition, because that's what I do now nowadays in Russia. So from one point, it's very important for me to know our own history in this situation, and I guess it's not that very clarified topic to European audience. So I will start from Moscow period, because as you probably know, Moscow is a capital city, one of the center of Soviet cultural life, because in the smaller cities there wasn't ability to acquire any probable cultural alternative culture. Instead of getting what was sort of official, in that case you would probably get exhibition of landscapes and still life instead of anything you could call contemporary. So here I have some images from Moscow conceptualist group. This one is a version of TOTART group, for example. It dedicated to very popular format of Subotnik, which means that people would go together and do something on the fresh air. And they wrote this little manifest, which would be looked like normal organization to plant some trees for some school or some hospital, but this one actually dedicated to the avant-garde, and it's called everybody to join them and to plant some trees in the name of main avant-garde figures of Russian art of the early 20th century. So it was auction of 1982, and the Moscow situation was actually dedicated to alternative exhibition from early 70s, but it has very certain circulation, different period of groups of artists, mostly active in 60s and 70s, and then 70s and 80s. It was shift between these two generations, and now I'm speaking of the generation of 70s and 80s mostly, because unfortunately you can't find much of documents dedicated to the earlier shift. So this is an images of, I would say, example of the apartment exhibition, which was run in different artist apartment in Moscow during that period. It was just number of works put it in one room wherever it was possible, because artists couldn't provide any official art exhibition spaces to show their work, so they are self-organized. And also they made performances in the same apartment, which was quite small. Probably one room could be 20 square meters or something like that. But it was the only option available for that period, and which was possible to get police involved or some mental health care involved, because people would be mostly gone to jail if they won't be working on sort of official jobs in the Soviet Union, and artists usually was working as street cleaners or some night watchers to provide their alibi to make artwork in the other time of the day. So that's just another images of that period in Moscow. Basically, this exhibition and these artworks was never political, because what made them political is some public information which came from Europe or from America, because they were dedicated to looking for new format and new structure for art life, instead of just bringing some political topics, which was never happened really in artist mind of that period. And so what we are getting now about this political art of the 70s and 80s in Soviet Union is later added by European writers. So just a couple of images, because so you can imagine how it actually looked in the interior of those apartments. And I want to go to as the capital of Soviet Union, it's Kiev, because I feel it's very important to speak about Ukrainian situation even now. And Kiev was a smaller city, they couldn't provide as much of cultural exchange support, not much of foreign visitors would come to see their city. From the other hand, there was quite successful official artists, and their children became those underground artists, and alternative exhibitions was provided by a sort of luxury apartment which was available for official art people. By themselves, they was quite independent, and you can see this during, if you can probably look in Ukrainian art now, it's unimaginable that it's not really related to Moscow situation. Even some people was traveling from Ukraine to Russia, there was not really mixing together in their ideas. It was mostly about keeping our own identity in a way. So, just to give you an idea, that is some topic discussion led by the main Ukrainian curator of contemporary art in nowadays, but this was in the late 80s. Another way of exchange art, there was photo clubs, which was dedicated to sort of exchange between different republics of Soviet Union by making photo exhibitions. It was not really possible to make exhibition of contemporary photography of the period, but there was a little trick. Sorry. By setting up a topic, for example, metal workers of nowadays, and presenting one room of exhibition like this. It's not real artwork, but just to give you imagination what kind of works would be presented on set kind of shows. Photo clubs could have another room dedicated to contemporary photography like this. So you can easily feel the difference between the situation. But that was a trick which was used to prepare, and because photography is such a comfortable media, it was sent by post, and it was mostly exchangeable exhibition, because working with painting and performances was not that available for Soviet people. And I want to dedicate a bigger part of my speech to St. Petersburg squad on Fontanka, which I have the privilege to live there when I was a child, but it was mainly operated in late 80s. Many artists from St. Petersburg and Russian art scene was working there. They had their studios. There was a so-called pirate TV in later 80s, which was very newer form of video art for Russia, for example, and which was very important over there. There was a studio exchange mainly started by Evgeny Kozlov, artist who was presented in Venice Biennale official project, 55th Venice Biennale. So he started a collection called 2 on 3 meters. He was working for some kind of, I don't know, probably cinema, so he had got bigger materials which artists couldn't provide by themselves. And by providing huge canvases and some paint, he asked his fellow artists to create a big work in scale of 2 on 3 meters. And after a couple of years, probably, of this work, they started to create a show on the bridges in St. Petersburg. If you would know, there is the main tourist attraction in St. Petersburg is bridges on the summertime, which are open to let the ships pass by. So artists was using this option to make the first public exhibition of contemporary art, because of course the squad and apartment exhibition was visited by some closer circle of interested people, but huge public would never see what's happening behind the closed doors. In this show, image I just want to show Timur Nvikov. who passed away a couple of years ago, but was presented on this manifesto just to give you an idea of what kind of artist was working there. And you can see the mountain of those directly on the ground. And that's how the exhibition looked in the final. It was very important because normal tourists just came to St. Petersburg or Leningrad in that period to see this white nights and bridges, would see the real contemporary art ongoing, and they of course completely shocked, you can imagine. And a little bit historical discussion, because of course this would come on topic, but what Vaina Group did was not real original idea, it was just a replica. Because you can see we had it already in the late 80s. So, this is Evgeny Kozlov in front of his collection. So it's very short story. We have a huge movement in squats and apartment art, but each city, like Moscow or Leningrad or Kiev, it could take a huge conference to speak on each of these, so just a little information for you. Thank you.